Another day, another signing for the Houston Texans. They keep another one of their own. One of the better players in franchise history will stay. Is it a good move? Is it a bad move? And what the heck is next? Plus, CJ Stroud finds his way on one of the most ridiculous lists that you'll ever see. And that's saying something. Let's go inside the locker room.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room.
Miami Fairbairn today, Dalton Schultz yesterday. It is the locker room, number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 Central, Sports Radio 610, and the Odyssey app. So another signing for the Houston Texans. They keep another one of their free agents. This time it's Miami Fairbairn. He becomes, I believe, the fourth highest paid kicker in the NFL. Another 3-year deal, 15 plus million, I think is what it ended up being. DJ Bieneme with the report. He had it first over there on ESPN. The reaction to the Fairbairn thing, I think it's good. He's been solid. I do find it rather interesting, and I don't know whether this is just flukish. I don't know whether it's alarming, but in a world where, and you've heard me talk about this before, in a world where, players are often, I think sometimes unfairly labeled injury prone after they miss a season or whatever, and they come back and then they're just missing a couple games each year. I do find it kind of wild that Miami Fairbairn has missed 9 games in the last 3 seasons. And that's not even counting the Tampa Bay game where he left early and they had to use Dare Agumbawale to kick the ball off and kick extra points. I just think that's interesting. And just to put in perspective, he's actually missed more games in the last 3 years than Saquon Barkley. He's missed 9. Saquon's missed 8. But I think the Miami Fairbairn thing is fine. You've had the best special teams. The one thing the Texans have been elite at, even during their worst recent years, has been special teams. Miami Fairbairn, John Weeks, Cam Johnston, all the other guys, Frank Ross. You keep those guys intact, and you don't have to worry about it. And I kind of look at the Dalton Schultz, Miami Fairbairn thing. I kind of look at it as I kind of look at it as avoiding shopping at a clearance store. Look, I don't know if y'all have ever shopped at a clearance store, but you can find gems, but sometimes you have to try a little bit too hard. And when you find something, sometimes you feel like, man, was the money that I saved doing this really even worth it? And there might be something wrong with the fabric. Maybe you should have spent the extra few dollars at the top rate department store. And that's how I look at Fairbairn and Dalton Schultz. The tight end market sucked. It's hard as hell to find a kicker. As much as kickers are disrespected, it's hard as hell to find a kicker, and you just didn't want to mess with it. And I think the jump in the cap, I think these are the types of things you do as opposed to, going and shopping for one of the top free agents because of it. So I just think they avoided having to deal with the tight end market because they probably didn't like anything. And I mean, we saw Detroit last year. If Detroit has a kicker, they might have ended up in the Super Bowl. We see it every year. Teams often miss the playoffs because they have kicking issues and seasons end because of it. So they really just didn't want to mess with it. So that's what I make of the Schultz and Fairbairn deals. It is the locker room, number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. Be sure to subscribe, right along. We are on Thursday. We're going to be 7 weeks away from the NFL draft. We're going to be less than a week away from free agency. So business is going to pick up, and the team is likely going to be shaped up in the next 7 days. Or 7 weeks, I should say. and we'll see how it goes there. Remaining free agents. What remaining free agents should Caserio keep off of the market? That's an interesting thing to think about. What did it take to keep Schultz off of the market? You really meet him in the middle. I'm not going to franchise tag you. I'm going to give you a 2-year deal for sure. Maybe it turns into a 3-year deal. I'm going to keep you off the market. Fairbairn, I'm going to make you one of the higher paid kickers in the league, and you're going to come through. What remaining free agents on the Texans should Caserio keep off the market? There's a couple of guys that come up, but I don't know that it's in these guys' best interest to stay off the market, and I don't necessarily know that it's in Caserio's best interest to not let them test things out. The first one is Blake Cashman. I don't know what the market value is going to be for Blake Cashman. I really don't. He's never gotten paid much. I think he's made $4 million or something in his time in the NFL. He's coming off a career year. He had a really good season last year, but I don't know what the market. I don't know how many people are going to be dying to sign Blake Cashman. It seems like Blake Cashman, whatever he can get, I think it might be something that the Texans are willing to match, because I think he's valuable here. Doesn't necessarily prevent you from trying to upgrade at other linebacker spots, but with Blake Cashman, I think they like him, and I don't think the market is going to be that high. But it might be something that he is perhaps going to test, and then maybe he comes back to the Texans. Grenard, look, the Grenard thing is interesting. I think Grenard, if someone wants to pay Grenard, give him a 4-year deal and pay him like a borderline elite edge guy, I think you just salute him and say, best of luck to you. Thank you for your service. Appreciate what you've done for the organization. But I think you got to let him play things out. And furthermore, even like a 1-year use me contract for Chase Young to see what he can do, that might be more appealing to the Texans. I think the price that it would cost to keep Grenard off of the market, because I'm sure there's some intrigue there, I don't think that's something that the Texans should and will do. We will see, but I would let Grenard play the market, and I think Grenard, salute to him. He's earned the right to do that. We've talked to him about it. He knows it's a business. He knows what the deal is. So Jonathan Grenard, I think he's someone who's going to play the market. Sheldon Rankins. I don't know what the market value is for Sheldon Rankins. Sheldon Rankins, he was good last year. He was one of your more expensive free agents. He had some really good moments. He had some really good games. He had some really good stretches. He seems to be one of those leaders in the locker room. It's the most intense interview that I conducted this week, for sure, or this year, I should say. No nonsense, very motivational, very matter of facty. And if you listen to our show, and if you heard our cut up with Dalton Schultz, BSing with him at the start of camp, I know it was on McAfee today, but we revisited when we cut up with him. That's kind of what we like to do. But Sheldon Rankins is just kind of a no-nonsense guy. I think I trust this organization enough to where, not to diminish what Sheldon Rankins is, I feel like they can find guys like this on 1-year deals and evaluate at a high enough level to where they're able to find, another Steven Nelson or another Sheldon Rankins. And they're also patient enough and smart enough. And I like the way Caserio plays the market to where they don't mind circling back. They don't get stuck in their ways. They leave all options open. You saw it with Desmond King. They cut Desmond King, much to the dismay of some. And then they circle back at it and they said, you know what? We might have made a mistake here. Let's bring Des King back. And Des King made some plays for them late. So that's one of my favorite things about Nick Caserio is that he's willing to circle back. He's willing to let the market play out. He's willing to adjust whenever the market speaks to the player or the market speaks to the team. And I think that's one of Nick Caserio's strengths. I think it's the most admirable strength. And I think in the long run, especially once this team starts getting better and you have to make tougher decisions, like we saw what Buffalo had to do today. Eventually the Texans are going to get to the Miami-Buffalo point where you're going to have to make some of these decisions as the talent increases. I think Caserio's really good at that. And I think that this is going to be a situation where he's going to play that out. And also I think the D-line market, unlike the tight end market this year, I think it's a little bit more appealing. Punter, Cam Johnston. Look, Cam Johnston's a weapon. We lived without Cam Johnston for 4 weeks this year. It sucked. We talked about the special teams. Do you want to mess with bringing in a new punter? I know there's some intriguing guys in the draft. I don't know how early you have to draft punters. I don't know if you want to waste draft picks on punters. Sometimes there's undrafted guys that end up doing their thing. That Iowa guy, I think, is like 6'4", 240 or whatever. But Cam Johnston, is this a situation where you don't want to deal with the punting situation? You just want to have your special teams on lock? I just don't know if Cam Johnston is going to be. I don't know what the market value is going to be, and I think that they're probably going to want to bring him back. But at what price? Is that one of the things they penny pinch? Who knows? That'll be something to keep an eye on. Steven Nelson, I'm good there. I think Steven Nelson has given you way more than you could have possibly expected. I think for the 2-year commitment that you made to him, he gave you everything and more. Everything and more Steven Nelson gave you. He was reliable last year. He played hurt at times. He had the 5 interceptions. Until after the season, he kind of kept his mouth shut about the drama. But I think Steven Nelson's a guy that at this point, I think he just kind of you've gotten the best ball that you're going to get out of him. I think even last year we saw a little bit of a decline at the end, at least physically. And I think just bringing him back, there's so many veteran corners that you can make number 2 guys, and you can just add depth. I don't need a guy that plays like Steven Nelson and thinks he's Deion Sanders at this point. It's one thing to be the only team to give him the 2-year deal, but at this point, it's just me. I just want to move on from it. That's just me personally. I'm very out on Steven Nelson, but I say all that with the understanding that he played last year. I just don't think he has his best ball ahead of him, and I think he's kind of feeling himself a little bit too much. One of those guys who thinks that everyone can do a podcast. He's smacking gum into the damn mic and just kind of rambling. I'm good on Steven Nelson. I know a few people get retweets from him online or something like that, and they like to that's enough for them to be Steven Nelson guys. I'm good on Steven Nelson, quite frankly. I'm all right. Devin Singletary, I think Devin Singletary is a guy I would like to bring back. I don't even know if Devin Singletary is someone who's going to want to test the market. And I don't think Devin Singletary is a guy that's going to get disrespected if they bring in another running back. I really don't. This is the deepest free agent running back class of all time. And D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio are both on the record. You heard that on Sports Radio 610, which is where you can hear me 10 to 2 Central on Sports Radio 610, the Odyssey app. You heard them both say that they'd like to bring him back. Devin Singletary came to Houston thinking that he was going to be the backup to Dameon Pierce, and he was completely fine with it. Now, he balled out. He gave you everything that you could expect from a backup running back. But last year, he was relied on to do too much. I think Pierce might have played 1, 2, 3 snaps in the playoffs. You had Dare Agumbawale as your second best back at times. It was great seeing Devin Singletary out there, and it would be great to continue to see Devin Singletary in a Texans uniform, but you've got to get another running back. And if you're looking around the NFL and you're looking at all these running backs that are available and the running backs that are already on teams, if a guy leaves, it's either going to be because finances, more times than not, it's going to be finances, or it's going to be opportunity, or it's going to be just a comfortable, great situation. I think all three of those things are going to work out with the Texans. I don't think Devin Singletary is going to get money whipped and taken away from the Texans. I also don't think that Devin Singletary is going to get some sort of starting opportunity somewhere else. I think it's going to be kind of a similar role to what the Texans would want to use him with. And as far as comfort, they love him in there, man. I've talked to Singletary after games. We've had him on the show. They love him. He loves it here. And he's one of the leaders of this squad, and they have a lot of respect for him. And quite frankly, I think this is still a guy that you can give the rock to 10 times a game and find other ways to use him. And if you need him in certain situations, he's already shown he can show out. Devin Singletary, I actually wonder if he looks at this market and is aware of that situation. So I think Devin Singletary makes sense on top of bringing in another running back. And I don't think he's the type of guy that's going to have much of an issue with that. So I'm a big fan of Devin Singletary. I like what he brings to the table. I also want to ask a question about Nick Caserio and how exactly you approach these types of things on a human element. But let's take a break for a second and just look at this CJ Stroud laughable, and I mean laughable spot on the PFF 101 list. So PFF put out a list, and I'm not a guy who argues with lists. Like we were talking in the show, like, is CJ Stroud a top 5 quarterback? I said maybe. I mean, I think he's top 10. I'm not. You guys know me. I'm on the flagship. I say stuff that not in 99% of other cities. If you worked at a flagship, you get axed. We're critical of the team. We're not homers. We take the job. We take it very, very serious, the obligation. We want them to do good. Our life is better when they're good. But if they're not doing well and we don't think something, then we're going to say it. Much like when Deshaun Watson was here in 2020. And I said it seemed like he was getting a little bit of Hollywood. That was before any of this stuff. We're not going to lie to you. With that said, this has got to be one of the dumber lists that I've ever seen in my entire life. This is the PFF top 101 players from the 2023 NFL season. And here is their criteria here. The list is based solely on play in 2023. Past or future play is not accounted for. So it's not like who would you rather have in the future. It's not about class or talent. It's about performance throughout the 2023 season. The list is created with an all positions are created equal mantra. So you won't see 32 quarterbacks heading up the list, even though that's the most valuable position. PFF's awards, the 101 factors in the postseason. So some players who won PFF awards may find themselves jumped. So it factors in postseason performance. Let's just go down this list and see when we find CJ Stroud. Oh, there he is. CJ Stroud, 100th on the list. Stroud surpassed all expectations in his first season, putting together one of the best rookie seasons any quarterback has ever had on his way to a playoff berth. He was incredibly accurate and efficient and did some of his best work under pressure, an area that was not always a strength of his in college. Okay. Let's just scroll down this list a little bit. Okay. Jordan Love, 89. I'm not even going to complain about that. He had a hell of a season. That's cool. Jared Goff, 83, whatever. He had a good season as well. Not gonna really make much of that. Look at Stingley, 76. How about that? Jalen Hurts, 72. That seems a little bit interesting. He had 15 interceptions. They say he only made 16 turnover-worthy plays, whatever the hell that means. But they got Jalen Hurts outperforming CJ Stroud this year. Little bit of a eyebrow raiser, but okay. Now is where we're going to get interesting. Xavier McKinney. I know a lot of you guys like Xavier McKinney. I sure as hell do. I wonder what the Texans think about him. Laramie Tunsil. Okay, there you go. Look at this. They have Tua at 44, 56 spots ahead of CJ Stroud. I think he threw 10 more interceptions than CJ Stroud. He also has way better receivers. And the stats aren't really that much different. What is your evaluation and how much of the gray area are you looking at if you have Tua 56 spots ahead of CJ Stroud? That's ridiculous. I defend PFF. I think you take PFF with a grain of salt. I think it's a great resource. I think it's an excellent resource. But what are we doing here? What are we doing here, PFF? Like what's the deal here? What are we cooking up there? I don't really know what's going on. I do like the NFL 100 list, but what exactly are we doing there? Looking at some of the comments, some of y'all are talking about scheme fits. Someone says players over scheme. I guess. I mean, I think there's a balance between that. American Tiger wants Patrick Queen. Perfect transition into the I guess it's a report by DJ Bieniemy. I think it's just kind of a nugget. The Texans and Queen apparently have mutual interest. I'm not really a big fan of signing Patrick Queen for the type of money that he's going to demand. Now, if they like him and if D'Amico likes him, I think that would tell you a lot. But the Christian Wilkins, Patrick Queen thing just doesn't excite me as much as fixing the offense. And if you miss on Patrick Queen or you miss on Christian Wilkins, and those are typically what bad free agent contracts look like, that type of player, it's pretty costly. But if you're shopping at the top for Saquon or Xavier McKinney, two of those guys cost probably less than one Christian Wilkins for sure, and just slightly more than a Patrick Queen. I also think there's a lot of upside when it comes to Christian Harris and some of the other guys on defense. I'm just not really a big pay the top guys on the free agent right now. So who knows? Just Chad, why isn't Chris Jones brought up anymore? I brought him up a couple days ago. I think it'll just be interesting to see if he even makes the market or not. Michael asks, he's one of the next guys to ask this. What about the players Buffalo let go today? Buffalo went on a complete cut spree. And I do think this is kind of a warning. Not a bad warning, and it's not necessarily an immediate warning. But Buffalo today, they cut Tre'Davious White, who, man, I feel bad for with his injuries. Jordan Poyer, Mitch Morse. They also released wide receiver Deontay Hardy and special teams player Saren Neal. They're also going to release Nyheim Hines. This is what the Texans are eventually going to head for. They're gonna get to a point, the Texans, where you're gonna have to cut some guys, and as your roster gets better, those are the types of tough decisions that you're going to have to make. And fortunately for them, they're not there yet, and they're probably a few years away from it. And that's the good side of a rebuild, especially if the rebuild goes well. As far as do I like any of these players? I don't know if Tre'Davious White's healthy or not, but if Tre'Davious White was good to go, I think if you could bring him in, I think he's a good veteran that you could line up opposite of Derek Stingley. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I don't know how injured he is, how much he has left. Poyer, what if you bring in Poyer? What are we doing? Like, what's your ideal scenario? Are you who are you pairing him with? You're putting him out there with Petrie? Are you replacing Petrie with him? Do you like Ward out there? Do you get rid of Ward? Like, what are you doing there? Because I do think they want to bring back Jimmy Ward in some capacity. So a lot of times we see these names. If they're going to go safety, Xavier McKinney would be my guy. I don't know. Jerome Kick says stop being cheap. It costs to play. It really doesn't. I don't know if you follow NFL free agency, but it's when you sign the top end guys, it doesn't, more times than not, it doesn't go well. Especially when you're getting the top dog. It's actually the opposite. It's not about being cheap. It's about being smart. Now, would it be the end of the world if you sign Christian Wilkins? No, but you just look at the history of defensive tackles, like the worst contracts in NFL history of free agency are defensive tackles getting their second deal. Christian Wilkins is 28 years old. Patrick Queen plays linebacker. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option in Baltimore. Does Baltimore know what they're doing? Like, do they have a good idea? Do you think that they have like a decent idea of what they're doing? Like, do they evaluate players good in Baltimore? They didn't pick it up. So you tell me if you want to make that guy one of the highest paid linebackers in the league. Again, if they decide it and they evaluate it and they figure it out, it's fine. But that's not really how free agency works. And that's not like just taking specific examples. I mean, you can go look more times than not, those guys that they're gone after 3 years. That's just kind of the nature of things. So I'm not being cheap. I'm trying to be smart. I'm trying to add players. Saquon, McKinney, and then Chase Young, like figure it out. But the Christian Wilkins thing, I've never seen. Let me just put it this way: when like all these free agent contracts, like hell, when the Washington Redskins signed Albert Hainsworth, or the Eagles signed Javon Curse, or the whole Dan Gilbert situation, and Ndamukong Suh, I think he only lasted a few years on his second contract. Trey Flowers, like I don't remember fan bases being upset by it because those are the biggest names, and you kind of get excited when you see your squad spend money. But it's not about being cheap. It's about looking ahead. Casario says he looks in 2-year windows. If you're paying Christian Wilkins $20 million, let's say Nico Collins repeats what he did this year, you're going to have to pay him. I mean, if Nico does this, you're talking about north of $20 million, regardless of whether you think he is or isn't going to do that. Derek Stingley is going to be eligible for a contract extension next year. He plays cornerback. That ain't cheap. The year after that, you're going to have CJ and you're going to have Will Anderson. So if you're paying Christian Wilkins and you're giving him a 5-year contract, that's just called being smart, brother. I don't know what to tell you. So we'll see how it goes. Now, if Christian Wilkins comes in here and he's one of the best defensive linemen in the league, it doesn't matter. So we'll see how it goes. Mr. Robot, I'd rather it be a bunch of solid guys who are upgrades than draft around them. Get back most of our guys, get a decent corner. See, I don't know. Yeah, get a decent corner sounds good. But yeah. And Birdie doesn't really understand economics because Birdie, and I can see why you're anonymous there, buddy. Wilkins cost a lot more than Saquon. Running backs, the market has dipped to where the impact that they can make, it's much lower. Like Saquon Barkley, we're talking like $10 million. We're talking about a 3-year commitment. Wilkins is going to be 5. So it's clown ass behavior to act like I'm sitting here saying, okay, these two guys are here. And I might even go with Saquon in this, but to act like in this situation with what the money's going to cost, with what the commitment is going to be, with what the potential impact is, to act like I'm sitting here and saying, okay, we're playing schoolyard football. There's Saquon Barkley. There's Wilkins. I'm going to take Saquon. That's clown ass stuff right there, buddy. That's dumb. This isn't a Madden franchise mode where the names are lined up and I'm scrolling down to Saquon and passing up on Christian Wilkins. There's a little bit more into it, buddy. So yeah, I think it's a completely different thing, but it's not the same thing at all. Jerome's still on it. Jerome, I know you playing Madden, dude. Congratulations to you with having the thumb energy to be able to still chat. You're always in here. I always appreciate you. You're my boy, but man, those thumbs got to be worn out. You've been on the joystick for a while now. I bet you just now walked out of the room. You probably got marks on your ears from the damn headphones cussing at people playing Madden. The solid approach last year. This year is not the same. I don't think this should be the approach every year. I'm basing it on the actual player. And look, if they're going to duplicate what they did last year and they're going to upgrade in as many areas as they did last year, given the fact that the talent has increased so much, then naturally there's a bigger incline. Last year, not as many players wanted to be here. There's going to be more players that want to be here, and the talent has increased a little bit. So yeah, if you duplicate that approach last year, it's proportionally going to be better. I don't know, like it's if they decide that they want to take a step up, much like they did last year. Last year they were giving out 1-year deals. The year before that they were giving out 1-year deals. But the 1-year deals and the quality of player with those deals and with that evaluation, it increased. You look at, because they've been doing this 1-year deal thing for 3 years now. Now, when they were asked with David Coley, you're bringing in clowns like Rex Burkhead, like just terrible names. Same thing with Lovie Smith. Last year, you're bringing in Devin Singletary. You're bringing in Sheldon Rankins. You're bringing in Jimmy Ward. You're bringing in way better quality. So if that approach is not necessarily staying on like a mediocre treadmill, that approach is based on evaluation. It's based on appeal, and it's based on an increasing quality of player and desire to improve the roster. So yeah, I think it's simplistic to look at it as if they decide to take that approach, it's the same. Pinche Katie says that's why I couldn't get with Lopez and Evans. And I understand that completely. The Mike Evans thing, some people would have been down with it. You can look at that as a 2-year plan. Like, what do you think is going to happen with Nico Collins? But yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Like if you're comparing bringing in Mike Evans to bringing in Saquon Barkley, what are you doing? Like what? That's 2.5 times more the money. Like leave running backs in their tax bracket with what they're at. Like, and that's the funniest thing about it. Like people are like showing themselves as being simps by saying, no, I would rather get Patrick Queen or I would rather get Christian Wilkins than Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley's not in that tax bracket. That's not it. It's not the same thing. Running backs are cheaper. So it's not the same thing. It doesn't make any sense at all. At all. So it's not like argue with something else. I use the five guys Whataburger philosophy. Like if I tell you, hey man, let's go get a quick bite, and you say, yeah, man, you got the typical 15, 20 in your wallet. We got a few options. If we want to go get a burger, we got a few options. Five Guys is over $25 or whatever the hell it is. They're not in the bracket. That's a completely different topic. So don't compare. Don't act like Saquon Barkley is anything to do with the other stuff. It's weird. Like I don't understand it. Like it's almost like you're taking expired talking points and you're misusing them now and acting like I'm sitting here drafting schoolyard style Saquon Barkley over Christian Wilkins or Patrick Queen. It's not at all what I'm doing. There's something called a salary cap, and there's something called money, and there's something called a running back market where the price is lower. So let's if we're going to argue and we're going to talk about clown stuff, then just use this. Curtis Samuel and DeAndre Swift, sign me up. Both are young and sturdy. I actually feel sorry for Curtis Samuel. My thing with Curtis Samuel is I just can't imagine what it's been like for him to be in the football hell that he's been in. You start out in Carolina, and then you end up in Washington. Career hasn't gone according to plan. I just don't know what the market's going to be for Curtis Samuel. I could see Curtis Samuel perhaps being cheaper than maybe we anticipate. The spot rack projections right now, I think they have him at like 3 years, 40 something, which the wide receiver group this year, the free agency to draft is kind of like tight end last year. I think last year Schultz was projected to get a 3-year deal and he ended up with a 1. So I don't know that you aggressively pursue Curtis Samuel. I could see a situation, a scenario where Bobby Slowick's really intrigued by it. But I'm open to the possibility. I heard Seth and Sean today talking about Tyler Boyd, and they seem to like him a lot because he can line up in the slot, he can get open, he can block. That's another name to look out for. I think his projection was like 3 years. God, I think it was like 26 or something, which, God, that's a little bit more than Robert Woods, and he's obviously better than Robert Woods at this point in his career. I just wonder if the market speaks to him as well. Just Chad says, bring Quandre home. Talking about Quandre Diggs, the brother of Quentin Jammer. I like Diggs. I don't know how they think Diggs fits at safety. I know Diggs is a Mulligetta guy, which is a good thing. But not a bad thing, I should say. I don't know if it's a good thing, but not necessarily a bad thing. But I like Diggs. I think Diggs is a good deal. I don't know how they think about it. I don't know how they would think about bringing in Diggs with Jimmy Ward. Like, how much do they want a little bit of youth at safety? I don't know how they feel about Jalen Petrie. Can't feel great. But yeah. How would you address the defense? I mean, there's a lot of ways. Free agency or the draft. Just because you don't sign Christian Wilkins or Patrick Queen doesn't mean you don't address the defense. Like, there's guys on this defense that are on the edge of becoming elite. So naturally the defense gets better there, right? If Christian Harris takes the next step, you get better, right? Derek Stingley continues to do what he did last year, you get better. Will Anderson, I think it's inevitable that he's going to be better. He improves, you get better, right? So I don't know. Do you look at Chase Young? Do you kick the tires on some defensive linemen? Maybe they bring in Christian Wilkins or Queen. Maybe they want to look at Xavier McKinney. You add corner depth. That's how you address the defense. I mean, I think it's kind of a puzzle. Well, it'll start shaping up next week, and then 7 weeks we'll get a look at the draft. Be sure to hit the like while you're here. If you have to go back and like it, much appreciated. Appreciate LL, the other LL, for looking out on that. Who has Nick Caserio missed on other than Green? I mean, I don't hold the like 2 years in the mud against him. I don't know. Maybe Petrie. We'll see. I mean, that's kind of a seesaw. I mean, we were feeling pretty decent about Petrie last year. It's going to happen. You're going to miss. And we'll see what happens with Kenyon Green. Bexley, new Texans fan here. Appreciate you, my friend. Sports Radio 610 and right here. Thanks for coming through. But what remaining free agents should Caserio keep off of the market? I think Singletary's one for sure. Perhaps Cashman. And then we'll see what happens. And you're not, again, like, you're not choosing Cashman. It's not going to prevent you from getting Christian Wilkins or whoever if you want to do that. Like, you're not, like, you people are being weird with like this notion that if you sign Blake Cashman, you sign Singletary. Even if you sign Saquon, like, it's not going to prevent you from Christian Wilkins. Like, there's so much space, there's so much flexibility, there's so many gymnastics. So if you're going to argue about Saquon and stuff, let's just keep it where it's at right there. I asked this question today, and I legitimately I have admiration for Nick Caserio for having to do stuff like this, and having to deal with this. Like, how do you approach if you're open to bringing someone back? Like, if you're open to bringing back Cashman or you're open to bringing back Grenard, but you don't necessarily want to pay them what their potential max value is, how do you approach that? Like, does Nick Caserio go up to them and give them the offer that he thinks that maybe could be like their fallback plan and risk insulting the guy? Or do you just go up to the guy and say, hey, man, you've earned the right to go out there and test this market. We love what you bring to the table. At this point, based on what the potential max value is, we don't want to give it to you. But if you want to come back to us or just kind of test the market a little bit, we completely understand. Which one is more insulting? I just don't know. And this isn't about like, and this isn't with like negotiating with someone that you definitely want to keep. But when Caserio talks about testing the market and all that, how do you tell someone to do that? Do you give them an initial offer so that they can shop it around? I don't know. That's why he gets the big bucks. I just think that's a hell of a dynamic and a hell of like a whole different element of what Caserio does for that. What is Singletary's value per year? I don't know. Probably similar to the same as last year. It might. I mean, I think it's very similar to what it was last year. A few $1 million, three to six, maybe. I don't know. Probably similar to that. But the Texans lock up Schultz. They lock up Fairbairn. Free agency is approaching. People being silly, people losing their minds, people having fun. And it's going to get more fun next week. You guys know there's no days off around here. I probably spend 30% of my time during the day talking about this effing squad. So be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. That's real important. Ride along, listen to the radio show, and keep it rolling. This is the best place to come for Texans coverage. We're at the game. We talk to players weekly. We're in the mix. It's not just one of those like channels, random ass channels that are just kind of looking on from the outside. We're in this mug. So I appreciate everyone for coming through. Something I'm doing this offseason, and this is very, very me. I'm going to keep score of who breaks the signings, the media types. You guys know, journalism major. It's a sick world out there when it comes to these newsbreakers. A lot of them are stealing stories. They're all trying to be first. I'm eating my popcorn just like you are, watching this stuff unfold. So I am going to keep score of who breaks the most Texans stories. Right now, we have a tie. The offseason scoreboard. Ian Rappaport has 1 point for breaking the Dalton Schultz signing, and DJ Bieneme has 1 point for breaking the Kaimi Fairbairn today. So we're 1-1 right there. I'm waiting on some of these other guys. I know Aaron Wilson's going to be on that board sooner rather than later. Jonathan Alexander, Schefter's going to get in the mix, but that's our scoreboard right now. We're 1-1. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like, man. I appreciate y'all. It's going to be fun. The season's about to pick up. We'll be talking to the draft picks too as well once they get drafted on the show. The interest is increasing. The buzz is increasing. The debate is increasing. The excitement is increasing, but the content has remained consistent. Thanks for coming through. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Appreciate y'all.
Got the game in the headlock, localized every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not 2, plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up, we number 1, you don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too.